people just reach out, and I have a personal mandate to never say no, which is hard. Sometimes I have to say, can you write me again next year? Because I absolutely can't right now, or I'm not going to be home, or I can't even get on a Zoom. But then there's the people that we are in a relationship. I take mentorship so very seriously. The people in the Lil Brown Fellowship were selected because I saw them, I interacted with them. These are people who I met and said, oh, you're just like me. And therefore, I need to take an interest because I know how hard it was for me to get here.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Hey, welcome back to Arts Educators Save the World, a podcast where artists and their mentors talk about the impact that arts education has had on both their lives. Happy 2026, everyone. In this few weeks that has seemed like a year, we are so glad to be back sharing new episodes with you. This is our first episode of 2026, and it's a banger. If my voice sounds a little hoarse, it is because I have just gotten back from screaming my head off for former Arts Educators Save the World guest, the great Kate Baldwin, who is just finishing up her turn as Roxy Hart on Broadway in Chicago. It was so fantastic to see such an incredible, deserving, warm, brilliant artist have a chance to take a huge turn as a star on stage. Obviously, I've known Kate my entire adult life, so it was personally super duper rewarding for me, but also as a person who has been part of the Arts Educators Save the World family, both as a guest and as somebody who is connected to powerhouse women in all aspects of the theater and gotten us connected with those women. It was so inspiring for me to get to see Kate really do her thing. And continuing with the theme of powerhouse women, today's episode features theater directors Nadia Guevara and her mentor, one of the most successful regional theater directors in the United States, Lili-Ann Brown. These two women are brilliant. They are hilarious. They both bring their sharpness, both of intellect and of wit, to the job of live theater directing. They are committed to a life in the regional theater, and Lili-Ann is committed to a life as a mentor to up-and-coming directors, women of color, who have not necessarily had the formal training that sets them up for success in the regional theater scene. Lili-Ann herself runs a fellowship program for up-and-coming directors. Nadia Guevara has been one of her mentees and is now herself getting the chance to show the ropes to other up-and-coming young directors. It was a fantastic conversation about regional theater, about what it means to get mentorship on the job, and about why it's always a good idea to work in musical theater and children's theater as a way to keep your wits about you and to make sure you have a blast in this life that they call live theater. So let's get into it. An honor to introduce today's artist, multi-hyphenate director, producer, arts administrator, and actor, Nadia Guevara. I could talk for a long time about Nadia's accomplishments, her roles as director of arts engagement and education at Gala Hispanic Theater in Washington, D.C., and as associate artistic director at New Village Arts in San Diego, Those make me want to know more about her role as an arts leader across the country. There was a 2019 feature in American Theater Magazine about her as a theater worker to know, which called her into the conversation as an exciting artist activist focused on radical inclusivity for artists of color. Most recently, Nadia was a recipient of the prestigious Drama League Stage Directing Fellowship, which has launched her into the next stage, pun intended, of her work as a nationally recognized director. Nadia, it's an honor. Welcome to Arts Educators Save the World.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction.
You're welcome. And I'm going to ask you, thank you. I'm going to ask you to bring into the conversation your mentor, who is the real star of today's show, and have you give her an introduction.
I'm just going to introduce this person from the place I know best, which is from my heart. I think Lili-Ann is one of the most whimsical and highly original and effervescent voices in American theater right now, an absolute connoisseur of musical theater, and somebody who truly understands how to stage comedies, especially women who are funny women. I've seen her do everything from new plays, most recently at Arena Stage, Fremont Avenue. And I've also had the privilege of working with her at La Jolla Playhouse when she did Ike Holter's Put Your House in Order. And I've also gotten to work with her at the Kennedy Center on a really fantastic kids show where we realized that we have an obsessive affinity with barnyard animals. So without further ado, I introduce my mentor, my heart, one of my favorite directors in the American theater scene, Lili-Ann Brown.
I could not ask for a better introduction. Thank you so much.
That is what I'm saying. Lili-Ann, it is a pleasure to have you join us as well, and to start this conversation about female directors and mentorship and how we create the next generation of exciting, dynamic theater makers. And so I want to start this conversation the way I always start these, which is with you all reflecting on the first time you remember working together. So tell me the story of the first time you worked together. It does not have to be the same story. Oftentimes it's not, and it's delightful to hear that. But let's start where it all began, the first time you remember working together.
That was at La Jolla, and that was just a moment that I got really, really lucky. And actually, that was at the time of my essentially regional debut. Like, I had worked in places outside of Chicago before, but when we talk about the regional theater in America, we're generally talking about like larger theaters, what we call LORT theaters, which is stands for the League of Residential Theaters. And so I was at La Jolla, and La Jolla was my second regional gig. I had just come from doing a show at the Goodman, which was a very, very auspicious regional debut. And then I went pretty much straight to La Jolla after that. And this is before I knew how to really ask for things in terms of like getting my team together. And so luckily, that led me to the theater saying, we are going to provide an associate director for you. And they provided Nadia. And I could not believe that someone so, I remember sitting and telling you, Nadia, like, wow, you really have your shit together. I was so impressed. She was such a wonderful associate director, and it really kept me together. I think I was probably a little bit intimidated to work at La Jolla, but I think I just wasn't feeling it. You know, I think I went in kind of saying like, kind of with the excitement, and then you get there and you're like, wow, this place is really big and it's pretty fancy. And I think we created a room that helped all of us feel less intimidated because it was a bunch of goons from Chicago and Nadia, and that was who was in that room. And like a fight choreographer who's like a super Hollywood guy. Like he's been on Star Trek, he had been on Buffy. Like, what a weird room. And we're doing a horror play. And so I think that helped us all, just like the weirdness of all of us. Uh, when I have to talk about what is my thing, I generally say like I'm the ultimate captain of the Bad News Bears. Like that's my entire flavor, is like just bringing Goonies together to be Goonies. And that absolutely was one of those experiences.
Yeah, that project that I did with Lil, that was my first time assisting a director ever. I had never done that before, never in any sort of formal capacity. I had also by that point decided, one, I was leaving San Diego after 12 plus years of cutting my teeth there, and two, that I was done with acting. Like I walked into that room completely shedding my skin as an actor and fully trying, just like in dogged pursuit of what the heck is directing, what is the way in. And I think this collaboration with Lil, it just felt like, I mean, looking back now, because it's been several years, that was what,
19.
2019.
2019.
And here we are 6 years later. Clearly it was fate, because Lil has played such a big role in my life and in my trajectory as a director because of that project. And it was just really exciting to be in that room and know for myself, I'm never going to be on stage again. Thank God. But like nobody else really knew that. That was sort of like, I had that inner resolve that I had, like, Lil was, the first step into that new portal for me. And we just really hit it off, like, and so much of this mentorship, truly, that knowing that it's been 6 years, is that like we see each other as theater artists, but also as humans. And I think directing can be a pretty lonely gig sometimes. And knowing somebody who knows exactly what's going on is really beautiful, because we can speak in shorthand, and we have spoken in shorthand. And the amount of barnyard animals we have shared is embarrassing. And thank God for that, because sometimes we need a well-placed fancy chicken meme in the middle of tech. We did Acoustic Rooster's Barnyard Boogie together, and that's how this happened.
And that's a kid's play, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was a fantastic new musical.
Incredible.
That we got to develop at the Kennedy Center. I was working on that from inception. So I was working on it actually a couple of years. It is an adaptation of two different Kwame Alexander books. Kwame Alexander, okay, yeah, we know him. He is
but maybe say for the audience who.
Yes, he's
who
an incredible, multiple Peabody Award-winning children's author. And he took two of his books and sort of smashed their lore together to create a musical with a very long title, Acoustic Rooster's Barnyard Boogie, starring Indigo Bloom.
That's right. I forgot about the other title.
Which we just called Acoustic Rooster. But that was absolutely a wonderful, seminal experience in our relationship.
Definitely.
So I have a lot of questions, especially around Nadia. You're starting to describe how Lili-Ann played such a large role in your development as a director. But first, I want to go back to, Nadia, how did you get in that room in the first place? If you'd been a career actor and you'd been making your bones in San Diego as an teaching artist and an actor, how did you end up as Lili-Ann's assistant director in the first place?
I kind of did it the way that I've done my entire career, which is kind of just busting into rooms and being like, hello. And that's exactly what I did. I was, by that point, I had been in San Diego for over a decade. And so I approached one of the producers and I said, hey, I'm really trying to get out of being an actor. I really want to focus on directing. I had directed maybe 2 or 3 shows at that point. And she said, say no more. I'll get you in a room. I have a perfect opportunity for you. And it happened like 2 weeks after I said, hey, I'd really love to see if I can assist before I leave San Diego because I'm leaving. And also, nobody knows I'm leaving yet. And so it really was incredible that as I was starting my new chapter away from San Diego, that this is the person that I met.
Wow. I didn't even know it went down like that.
Yeah. I mean,
That's amazing.
because I think soon after the show opened, I packed up my car and I drove. It's crazy.
Yeah, I knew you were on your way out, but I didn't know that it was such a like fortuitous, like instantaneous kind of thing on the
It
front
really
end.
was. It just sort of floated into my lap and I said, okay, yes, Google's Lili-Ann Brown.
Wow.
I want to hear more about the life of regional theater directors and how, that as a way of being in the world, and how you all, Lili-Ann, how you've come to make that life for yourself, and Nadia, how you've learned from Lili-Ann around that, because I think, being a theater director is one thing. Being an artistic director is another. We've actually had Molly Smith and Wendy Goldberg on the podcast, who
Amazing.
ran Arena Stage together. Amazing, incredible women. And we talked a lot about the role of an artistic director, but it seems to me that a regional theater director is its own brand of role that you have to grow into and cultivate. So can we talk a little about that?
Sure. I feel like I am currently the poster girl of American regional theater. Like, in some ways, quite literally, I am now the poster girl of American regional theater.
Lili-Ann is holding up a literal poster of the front page of a magazine of herself as the poster girl for
of the SDC
theater.
Journal. Mm-hmm.
Which is a huge honor. So I'm very excited by that. It definitely lets me know that I am a part of something bigger, which is what I think in talking about being a freelance director in the regional theater versus the people that we know who are associated with institutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entirely different bag. Freelance directing is really, really hard. I just spent the last 3 months of my life on the road, and that's really normal for me. Not getting to be home a good like 50% of the time, being away from home. And how do you live your life? Like, how do you do life on the road? And it's different from like, actors on tour because you do sort of one thing for some time versus I'm doing generally something that puts me in a new location for 3 to 6 weeks. Almost always it's going to fall somewhere in there. And sometimes the gigs are back to back. Oh my gosh, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2022, I had this like crazy back to back run. So I had to pack up all these boxes of clothes for different seasons and pre-address them to different theaters and then leave them in my living room. And I had a friend who I gave a key to my house, and I had to maybe a few days right before I'd open a show, I'd call and say, okay, now send the Boston box. And so when I show up in Boston, there is now a box there of fall clothing because I've been wearing summer clothes and now it's fall and I haven't gone home. And so things like that, that's what being a regional theater director is like, when we're just talking about like the life, the living of it. Um, what's amazing about it, the art of it is I love going to different places, being in different communities, being at different theaters. Every single theater has a different culture. I love interacting with all of those different artists. We have amazing, incredible artistic directors out here in the American theater, and I've gotten to work with so many of them. Because I'm still learning. So that's amazing for me and my growth. Um, I have been an artistic director before, and I think maybe doing it again. It's rough because we've many things like with the push for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have also seen the push of people getting pushed right off the glass cliff. And we just saw sort of a huge wave of that. Um, and I'm not eager to have that happen to me. So it's made me a little leery about pursuing one of these big artistic directorships. And they've been pursuing me a little bit, and it's weird to sort of be like leery of it. But we have to protect ourselves. So just the same way that it's hard to be on the road, and I'm like, oh God, I want a salary, I want an office, I want an assistant, I want these things that would make my life so much better. My quality of life would be much better with those things. But instead, I'm just dragging around the road, dragging around the country, and I've I made that work for me, and I made that. It started to become a movement for me. I started to say, okay, well then what can I do? Like, how do I make this not just better for me, but like better for the world? Like, what am I contributing? What am I doing? And so when I say like, merry band of fools dragging around the country, I really mean that because I started dragging folks around the country. So now there are many, many different actors and designers who have been introduced to the whole country because I'm very aggressive about bringing them in. And I'm very aggressive about what I like to call cross-pollination because I believe that theaters should be hiring their local uh, artists and actors and designers and technicians. But I also believe that like cross-pollination makes for species health, right? That's a scientific thing that we know. So um, I think that like bringing in some people and not just people from New York, right? Because that's generally the expectation is that, okay, we'll do this many local people and then we'll bring everybody else from New York. And I started coming into spaces saying, yeah, but you don't, why? Just why? And there's never a good answer. There's never a reason. It's just like, oh, that's what we do. That's what you do. That's who we know. And so I started saying like, well, what about this person from, I will come do a show and I'll bring somebody from, DC, some people from Chicago, maybe this dude from Boston, right? Because as I've gone down the yellow brick road and amassed all of my little friends, and then I want us to sort of be out here in the world, and people are very excited after the sort of initial, like usually I have to fight a fight because when you're saying I want to do a thing you're not used to doing, you usually get a lot of pushback. But in the end, I have never had anybody be anything but overjoyed and happy that I brought the people that I brought with me.
And Nadia, where do you fit into that band of band of fools. Have you been on that ride?
I have to an extent, and it's I feel like the natural progression of things is like I assist Lil for a while, but then I get busy with my stuff and I can't assist her as much as I want to because I need to start putting things with my name on it. So I feel like now we're in that place where it's like, gosh, if only there were 2 weeks of difference, I could have gone with you to the West Coast, or what have you. But it's great to have those ongoing conversations about like, okay, Lil, where are you off to next? This is what I'm doing next. And then also having someone to talk logistics with because, I have to have a cup of coffee in the morning, right? So Lil and I will get into the nitty gritty. Oh, I got an AeroPress, but then if I do the AeroPress, the la la la, and it's just nice to have the whole thing. Like, yes, you're working at this institution, the production team is shaped as such, which is different from how it's shaped as such. And Lil has, I'm also trying to break in regionally into my own city here in DC, which has been very difficult. And I've been subletting in New York on and off for the past 3 years because the joke, which is not really a joke, is that people like to fish for directors in the Hudson River and not in the Potomac River. So I make myself nimble that way. And lately I've been making some really big swings, like crazy swings, trying to be like, hello, I'm here. Do you see me? And I tell Lil my antics from start to finish. And she'll sometimes push back and be like, girl, are you crazy? But then I do it. And she's like, okay, that was really good. Okay. Will anything come of it? Who cares? At least I took a big swing, and I took a big swing with somebody who had my back. So, that's where I am at regionally. Like getting hired in DC as someone who is originally from DC is very difficult. So and Lil loves DC. Lil has been in DC so much. We're talking Kennedy Center, Signature Theater, Olney, where she swept the Helen Hayes with Fela, so everybody knows her, and she's out here, and it's so nice to know that like it's weird, it's a cognitive dissonance. Like the person who has my back the hardest, like the person I will call my mentor for the rest of my life, isn't from here. Everybody knows her, so when she comes to town, I'm like, okay, great, my artistic home is back. Even though I'm from here, this is my artistic home, which is, I guess, part of the whole like fluidity of being nimble. And I've been on the road, but more as a guest director at academic institutions like Texas Tech and University of Rochester. Shout out to those academic programs because they're really churning out some great artists, and they hired me, so thanks. And I brought my my version of my methodology to an academic curriculum, right? So they're getting a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And yeah, I really hold Lil as she travels in my way.
What does it look like to have each other's back in this space? Like, I know what it looks like in a friendship. I know what it looks like in a sisterhood, but what does it look like given the unique positions that you're in as directors, as female directors, as women of color? Like, what does it mean to have each other's back?
Wow.
For me, I feel like take what you know about, like what you just said, how it feels as a friend, and especially as women. And I think sort of take that and just pile on, right? As women of color, as directors, right? There's such so much commonality, and one of the reasons that I took Nadia on, when like we created this mentorship relationship during our first experience. I was like, I'm going to mentor you. Like, I think you're awesome. I think, so what do you want to do? Tell me, where are you going next? I want to keep track of you. Like we became friends, but I knew I wanted to help because I saw so much promise in Nadia. I just thought she was such a badass, and I wanted to help elevate her in any way that I could, because I know what it's like to be a young brown woman who people are like, oh, that's cute.
That's so it. That is so it. I'll say for me, like, yeah, you're right. This is different from a friendship, although it does have aspects of it, because there is a lot of, you know, secrets and hot goss and memes, spicy memes too.
And
But
barnyard
I
animal memes.
Oh
Don't
my
forget.
gosh, it's just it's but she just adds so much to my life. But when I take these big swings that I've been taking lately, professionally, the person that I want with me every step of the way is Lil. Like, she reads the crazy things. She knows the crazy things, the big swings that I'm taking, and she can give me an industry perspective while also understanding who I am very, very well. I'm a bit of a dramaturg too, and so that's something that she's been able to nurture in me, as we work together. And I also think, like, Lil does musical theater so beautifully, and that's not something that I necessarily want to pursue. I mean, look, a good musical is a good musical. I'll direct a musical, but I don't think that I would brand myself as a musical theater director. But knowing that that's what Lil does so beautifully, and seeing her work in action, and knowing what's behind that moment. And that happened especially when I saw Play On at Signature Theater, because it's a particular brand of whimsy, a particular type of Black excellence and humor. And she just fine-tuned it. And I know she fine-tuned it because she let the actors do their thing too. She lets them go really, really big, and she just very gently guides them, And I saw all of that happening. Like, I was watching the show, but also seeing that process. And that feeds me so much in my process.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you find yourself, Nadia, taking a version of how Lil works with actors and designers and translating that into your own version? Like something that's like, oh, Lili-Ann would do it this way. Here's how that vibes with me. Here's how I'm going to take this in my own direction.
I feel like I recently spoke to a sound designer, and we had our first meeting, and I said, okay, let's do this. So then I texted him later, and I was like, I feel like that's something Lil would do. I was like, hey, so this character loves Hey Soul Sister by Train. Okay? Do you understand me? And the guy goes, oh, I think I do. But that's what it is. It's like we're using
That's good.
these sort of
That's good.
moments of pop culture, of music, and being like, this guy likes Hey Soul Sister by Train. Do you understand? That's his favorite song, okay? So do that. But there's a conversational
That is a
element.
brilliant note, first of all. That's a brilliant note.
I was just like, I hate this song so much. And I feel like this character would just be like, your lipstick stains. But there's a conversational quality of like, let's use what we know to, or like, let's use what we know to find a common ground, and then use that as a foundational language. That's something that Lil does really well. I know her brand and her style. I love her brand and her style, but I can't replicate it because my convictions are too strong. And I feel like when I direct something, it's coming from the pit of my guts, you know what I mean? But with Lil as well. So I think just learning to trust that instinct definitely comes from seeing her not to go back to Barnyard Animals, but Acoustic Rooster was me getting a front row seat as to how Lil does humor, and how she does humor in a culturally specific way, but in a way that anybody can understand, which she also did with Play On, right? And I really fight against the people who are like, look at that cute little Latina who's a little director. How cute. Let's pat her on the head. But I've never wanted to be branded as a Latina director ever. And I've always made that crystal clear with Lil and everybody who tries to hire me for work. And I go, do you know that I'm weird, or do you just know that I'm Latina? because you need to know that I'm weird first. That's the first thing you need to know. I am incredibly
Exactly.
subversive. I'm very subversive. I am the antithesis of your token hire. So if you want a badass bitch who's gonna bring subversion and a sense of play and risk and rigor, hire me. But if you just want somebody with a last name that may or may not be part of the reason that Cuba is in an embargo, then I'm not the one, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not the one for you. And I've been able to really be that with Lil because, you know, Latino doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. Because especially if you're Afro-Latino, which, you know, and this is something that Lil and I have talked about a lot. What is the Black American experience? What is the Black Latino experience? And they are just, we are so close. We are so, so close. Especially like you look at works like Lil's Fela, for example. The Fela Kuti work that she did. I mean, it's a thin line between the Afro-Caribbean culture and Afro-American culture. And that's something that I've been able to really be with Lil next to me and behind me and in front of me, like just helping me shape my identity as an artist.
Yeah. I have to say that, like, when I choose, so first of all, I actually have like a group of mentees that I have named the Lil Brown Fellowship.
Yes, you heard
And
it here
they're,
first, y'all.
I
I'm
know,
into
and that's actually something that I don't put out there too hard because I don't want anybody to try to like make me accredit it or any sort of, it's literally a personal thing that I haven't wanted any sort of like press or to really talk about it because I just want to do it. Like I have people that I mentor, it's a small group of people that I mentor that I'm very serious about the mentorship. I think there's like, I'm one of those people that I probably do at least one lunch with a random person every week of life, at least, because people just reach out and I have a personal mandate to like never say no, which is hard. Sometimes I have to say, can you write me again next year? Because I absolutely can't right now, or I'm not going to be home, or I can't even get on a Zoom. I do have this mandate to help anyone who asks for help. But then there's the people that we are in a relationship. I take mentorship so very seriously. Um, and the people in the Lil Brown Fellowship were selected because I saw them, I interacted with them. These are people who I met and said, "Oh, you're just like me, and therefore I need to take an interest because I know how hard it was for me to get here." And so, when you're a weirdo and a self-starter, which is so all of my mentees also are people who I met. Now, some of them have now chosen to go to grad school, but when I met them, grad school was not part of the program. And I didn't go to grad school. So that's kind of part of it is I'm like, how can I help? Because you don't have this thing that they sort of expect us to have, or this thing that sort of gives you these certain connections and creates this pipeline. I never had a pipeline. And so my goal is to try to help create a pipeline as well as to sort of diversify and bust up the very unforgiving pipeline that exists now in the American theater. Basically, the like, I don't know, like I call it the Yale to Lort pipeline in the American theater. And no tea, no shade to those people. That's a wonderful academic program. But like there's got to be pipelines for everyone who wants to do this work and who is good at doing this work. And that really doesn't exist. Nadia, I really hear you when you talk about like just having human level interaction and the fact that I use pop culture and that you use sometimes what I just call plain speech. And it's weird to have to name something plain speech and talk about, well, I use plain speech as if this is some sort of technique. But
I'm a
right, like
professor, so to be clear, that is a technique in the world that I live in where I'm like, what are we humans? Can we talk like humans? Or do we need to like, have some sort of way that professor shows itself, right? Or like, yes. So I
thank you
completely
so
understand
much for
the need to
validating
like
that.
speak like a human being, but also that you have to name that you're speaking like a human being. Yeah.
It's so wild, and it became a thing that almost, I think, became defiant for me because I was just sort of being myself. And then I would go into these spaces where people would do a thing that a good friend of mine, Ken Matt Martin, who works at Baltimore Center Stage and is, I think, a great American theater maker. But he introduced me to the phrase talking in cursive because one day I was saying, how this person came in and they were using all of this jargon and they were saying all of these things and everybody responded a particular way. And I was like, I know all of those words. I just don't see the need to say them all at the same time, all the time, to make myself sound intimidating or more intelligent. Like I was just like, that's not how I want to communicate in the room because when we're making theater, we are making something that is supposed to be felt.
Mm.
That's the point. That's the whole point. Is something that is supposed to be felt. And so my job is often getting people out of their heads and into their bodies and to get them, out of their own way as opposed to consistent intellectualizing and consistent overthinking. And so I made a very conscious choice that I was going to speak a certain way and express myself a certain way. And I liked the reaction that I got from the artists that I work with. Because for me, I'm doing what I'm doing for the artists and communicating with them in a way that they can feel and that they can bounce off of and boomerang off of is really, really important to me. But also I want to feel comfortable. And I think that I like to lead by example. I take leadership also very seriously. I'm always hyper aware that I am a Black woman in this industry who is in rare space. And when I was coming up, I did not have anyone to look at. And I didn't even know, like, I honestly should have always been a director. I should not have even spent 15 years of my life being a professional actor. I had a good time, and I think that part of my career absolutely informs me as a director. So maybe I shouldn't say I shouldn't have done that, but I'm just saying, like, I could have been directing the whole time, but I didn't know that it was something I could do.
You can't be what you can't see.
Even though I directed in college, because if you can't see it, you can't be it.
That's right.
That's right. So I'm very conscious of how I conduct myself, how I speak, where I go, what I do, because I feel like some Black girl is seeing that and she's either getting inspired or she's getting, I don't want her to be discouraged. I don't ever want to be inaccessible.
So I wrote a book. It's called How the Arts Can Save Education. And that is the book that has inspired this podcast. And so often when I hear incredible artists talk about the ways in which they're changing art making, it makes me think about some of the ideas from the book, which I hope are ways for educators across the board. So I'm not just talking theater educators and theater artists, but science teachers and YMCA program directors and, museum educators, how they can use the power of what you all do to make their work better. And so I want to share with you a couple of things that I have been writing down as y'all have been talking. And it's a little bit of writing in cursive, but I find that the value of being able to speak that back allows folks to have the work that they do validated with language that bridges across to some of the big ideas that we use in education. So the first thing I heard you all talk about is the kind of mentorship as social capital building. And in, education, we talk a lot about the hidden curriculum and a lot about the ways in which kids, and particularly kids who struggle to fit in mainstream settings, not only miss out on some of the academic content, but really miss out on the hidden curriculum. So a kid that doesn't know that, if you miss an assignment, the best thing to do is go to your teacher, tell them you're sorry you missed it, and ask them for help. A kid who's disconnected from the system, misses an assignment, feels embarrassed, doesn't talk to their teacher, maybe gets mad about it, maybe acts in a way that makes their teacher feel like they don't care, and boom, all of a sudden, you've got a perfectly, potentially successful kid locked out of an academic pathway because they didn't know the very basic move of you screw something up, you go tell that teacher that you want to make it right. And nope, that's not an explicit aspect of what it means to learn to be a successful student. But it's probably one of the most important things a young person, especially one who doesn't have a background that connects them naturally to institutionalized education, it's probably the most important thing that they could learn. And I've heard you both talk about what it seems to me is kind of the theater version of that, is that your mentorship is partly about the hidden curriculum and affording folks like Nadia access to that hidden curriculum so that she can go out and take those big swings. Because she knows oh, okay, this is what's posted on the website, but let me say a little something about that, right? So there's this kind of social capital hidden curriculum piece. And then the second piece that really, Nadia, when you were talking about people getting to know you as an artist and seeing you for what you bring, there's this idea in education about the role of what they call culturally sustaining pedagogy, which is the idea that kids learn best when we start with the assets that they bring into the space as levers and connectors to the things that it is you want them to do in the teaching and learning environment. And the crummy version of that is a book that used to have a main character named John, but you got a bunch of brown kids in your class, so you rename the character Jose, right? That's the crummy version of that, because that takes a surface level feature that you might believe will make the kid feel better connected to this text because all of a sudden you're calling the kid Jose instead of John. But really, right, that kid is a Harry Potter fan. And so giving them access to texts about kids who do magic is more important for developing a culturally sustaining approach than it is making sure the kid has a name like Jose, because even though the kid might be Latino, actually what they want to do is read books about kids who do magic. And both of these things can be true, right? And it's not that we don't want to connect to the ethnic and nationality and historical cultural work that kids bring with them. Of course we do. But also, kids are so much more than whether you call them John or Jose, right? And you are so much more as a director than whether your last name, indicates that your family may have been involved in the slave trade at some point in our nation's history, right? that those surface features have meaning, and we should honor those, but we should also understand the assets that kids are bringing with them into classrooms. And so this kind of culturally sustaining approach to art making is very much kind of what I hear both of you talking about artistically. And then the third thing that I really want to hear, I would like to hear what you think about both of those things, but also there's been a lot, you've both talked a lot about this idea about building a room, creating a room. And to me, that sounds like building a classroom community. And again, in teacher school, which is where I do most of my teaching, most of my students think about becoming a teacher as about communicating content, right? They think like, okay, I'm going to be a social studies teacher, so I need to teach American history and civics, and maybe I'll get to teach AP World, right? But they don't think about how the setting, the space, the relationships, the social fabric is actually part of teaching and learning, and it's not a separate thing. And so this concept of building a room and a director as somebody who builds a room feels to me very much like what a good teacher ought to be doing when they have a group of students in the room. So I said a lot of things, but I'm curious sort of the social capital piece, the culturally sustaining piece, the build a room piece, whether any of that resonates with you all in terms of the work that you do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My sister is an educator, and she is very funny, and she should be on SNL. And she does talk about these concepts to me often, and we do have a bit of an exchange when it comes to temperature of a room, or she'll tell me an imagination game that worked, or she'll ask me for a theater game that she can do as a warm-up. Or there was another thing that slipped my mind, but yeah, it's really interesting to have this tie back to education. I think it's something that she does beautifully because she thinks creatively and she thinks outside of the box. And this idea of the hidden curriculum is so interesting when we're talking specifically about, like, I did 1 year of college. That's it. Because I did not understand the hidden curriculum, and I did not have the social capital, and I did not have the generational understanding of what it meant to go to an American college institution. And I went with zero safety net, zero cultural context. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And, it was really difficult, and it was a huge hit to my self-esteem and also to my growth as an artist, because I thought, well, I don't have the credentials, and that's obviously not how I feel anymore. But it's interesting to know that it's like something like this Lil Brown Fellowship. It is a thing that exists. We meet each other. I've met other people who have also been mentored by Lil. We get along great, or we knew each other from before. And she knows how to build a group of people, whether it's a design team or a fellowship group or what have you. She knows how to build the teams. And then I just want to also shout out to the Cal State system, because I was in San Diego for a long time, and they actually have a program for first generation Latinos to attend college, and they have a room and they have particular guidance. And when I saw that, it was so moving to me, because years before I had gone through such a terrible time in college. And I mean, even down to like financial aid, we're talking like to come into this completely blind is very difficult. And I still have a lot of hangups about academia. So when people say to me, oh, well, why don't you go back to school, or you could do this, you could, it's too much for me to bear, because we are talking about this idea of the hidden curriculum. I hope that in higher education, we can have a system throughout the schools in the United States that can kind of identify a student who may not have the generational or social capital of higher learning institutions and give them a bridge, because a bridge would have made a world of difference to me. But I wouldn't have been on the path that I'm on now, and I wouldn't change a gosh darn thing, even though it was really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. I think all of the things that I went through are what inform my work and what inform me wanting to mentor people. And if like, I never had a cohort, so I wanted to create a cohort. The Lil Brown Fellowship exists because I have never been part of a fellowship. I have never had an internship. I like to say I did not know about the ship. I wasn't on the ship. I missed the ship. I did not know. Nobody said, like, there's these programs. And so when Nadia or anybody else is like, I want to do a thing, write me a recommendation. That's another thing I spend a lot of time doing, is because I'm like, you're doggone right. I'm writing you this recommendation because I want you to get into any program that's going to help you.
Because of Lil's glowing recommendation, I ended up getting this 2-year Drama League fellowship, salary and healthcare for 2 years while I assisted. Some of them were great. Other ones I cried in supply closets. But Lil knew everything and held my hand all throughout. And now Irvin has the same fellowship that I have, but also met Lil in a very organic way. And it's just a very beautiful ecosystem of Black Americans, Afro-Caribbeans. We're all just here being cousins in theater.
People have no idea. They really think that there's been a lot more progress, unfortunately. And I think it's because people are really good. This is the theater. We're great at optics. We're great at we're great at smoke and mirrors. We're great at making a thing look like a thing when really there's nothing behind it. That's literally what we do. And so I have just been trying to be the thing and do the thing, as opposed to constantly talking about the thing, screaming about the thing on the internet, or writing think pieces. I'm just trying to do the thing. And it's been working out.
Can you think of a time when the two of you were working together when you didn't agree about something, an artistic choice or a creative part of the creative process, where you had to work through differences in vision? Or have you always had sort of a very smooth ride through every collaborative process?
I'm Lil's associate, so
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me, because
well, no, I feel like the assistant associate position, if there's good alchemy, is me. I'm the co-captain, but I'm following through with Lil's vision. You know what I mean? And that's my job. And also, if something happens, I know there was one time the set was at a different scale that you imagined, and I remember you were upset, and that's okay. It happens, and I act as a counterbalance. You know what I mean? As an associate and as an assistant, again, only if the alchemy's there. I've also been in rooms where, directors didn't give two hoots if I was there or if I was dead. They didn't care, but there's a sense of there's a concert. She's the conductor and I'm one of the musicians. I do the cymbals in the back. I do the crash cymbal.
You do way more than the cymbals. You're first chair violin, right? That's
Thank you.
That's what that's like for me.
Well, I'll tell you that the second time we worked together, I was giving you notes and then you were giving them to the actors. But in the second show we worked on together, Lil was just like, oh no, you understand the text. Like, I'm doing the staging, I'm doing the this and the transitions. You can give these line notes, you can give these text and like character arc notes. And it was a no filter thing. Lil was like, just go, do it. And that was huge for me at the time. I was still a very young director at the time, and here I was like actually shaping the show in a tangible way, you know.
I like to have an associate director, and it's a mentorship relationship. And that's how I like to do all of my shows, because I want to hire somebody that I believe is capable and then help them get their skills up. And I feel like that's the bridge, and that's what I'm here to do, as well as I want help. I like having a second pair of eyes. I like having somebody to turn to and say like, "Is this weird? It's kind of weird, right? Is it weird? Or am I just like numb?" Because like no one person honestly can be in control of all the things all the time. And that's the gig of a director. That's what is asked of you really, is to sort of be in control of all the things all the time. And so I prefer to have somebody next to me who I trust, but who I also feel like I am adding value for them. I really think that being an associate in the theater is it's apprenticeship, and I feel like that's almost like the reason why that position should exist. I feel that it is apprenticeship. I feel that apprenticeship is necessary. Um and so yeah, I forgot where I started with all of that, but that's how I like to do it. And so particularly if we've developed a relationship and this isn't even our first go round, yeah, you're given the notes. I trust you. Go forth. Like, I'm just gonna, as we progress, I'm gonna give you more and more responsibility,
Mhm.
because I think that's good for you, and it's great, and it takes something off my plate. That is a win-win. And I believe that's what apprenticeship is all about. So I love that. And I love that I love you saying that that was helpful for you and that it was
Big
meaningful
time.
for you.
I just started having assistants myself, not associates, but assistants. And one assistant will be an associate soon. And I am going to take her with me. What's up, Sedona? I'm going to take her with me because I know that she has the thing. And if I'm somewhere that a door has been open for me, I can also open the door for her the same way that Lil opened the door for me. And like, on and on we go. Just a bunch of girlies, having each other's back and opening doors for each other. And by girlies, I mean everybody, even if you're a cis man. What's up, girl? Hey, girl.
Exactly. Hey, girl. And I think it's just, these institutions, especially our bigger, older institutions, they just get trapped in a cycle of this is what we
Mm,
do, this is how we do
mm.
it, this is how we've always done it. It's literally the death of art is people saying, well, that's how we've always done it. I hear that so very much.
It
And
might be the
it's a
death of
problem.
schooling also, to be fair. Like, I always see all these parallels, right? I came from the theater world and now I'm in the schooling world, and so many of those conversations have those parallels in schooling spaces, right? Like, we can't change the curriculum. This is how we've always done it. We couldn't possibly think about, you know, think rethinking the way we see children. This is how we see children. I mean, it's the death of any forward motion in any creative institutionalized space. So I am, I mean, I, I'm really inspired by both of you, and by the idea that there are people out there pushing that conversation forward in these regional theater spaces. Because also, I think for many of us who love the theater, professional regional theaters are the the main spaces in the American theater where change gets made and where institutionalized practices of what constitutes outstanding American theater happens. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful to both of you. Last question. What are you working on now? Like, I'm just curious about where you're both at in your practice. Like what's happening for you right now?
Right now, I just moved into an office space, which is a dream of mine that
Yay.
I've been wanting to do forever because my scripts were living in boxes and they needed to breathe. So what I'm doing immediately is putting those scripts on shelves and really taking inventory of what I have and haven't read. I've not read a lot of these because, bless you, she just sneezed, everyone. This is podcast world.
Well, cut it in
Um,
post.
and yeah, and then in the spring, I'm directing a Lauren Yee play called Young Americans. And I've been doing my research on her as a playwright, her voice. I just love that she has that cultural sensibility of like looking back and looking at where she came from and the way that she honors her parents and especially her dad in her work. And, and clearly her dad is a bit of a goober and so is mine. And, my dad is not, I mean, he's not assimilated to the US at all. And he's so charming. And I'm excited to explore that father-daughter relationship and to dig into Lauren Yee's lovely and modern voice.
That feels like such a good fit for you. And everything you just said is, you're
Girl,
going to
you
kill
said
that.
it.
It's going to be so good. That's going to be really good.
Where are you going to be in March, April? What are you doing, Lil?
Oh, ha, ha, ha. I will be, well, before I get there, I got to do a production of Eureka Day here in Chicago.
Oh, Eureka Day.
That
Fantastic.
I'm really, really excited about because it's home team all the way. It is with a theater
Yeah.
company called Timeline that are really some hometown heroes. They're about to, I'm not going to get to be in their new space yet because this is their interim season where they've moved out of their old space and they have built a new space that they are not going to be in until like the end of next summer, I think. But we're all very excited that this company, this stalwart, lovely company that's done so much great work for so long, is finally going to get their own theater. And it's sort of one of the first good things after the pandemic, like the first sort of like progressive, like, okay, we are moving forward, things are happening. It's one of the first of those to happen since then. So we're all very excited. I've worked with them before. It's great to work with them again. And it's a comedy. As Nadia said, I'm a comedy girl and I can't always get people to see me that way. So when it's people I know, they know. And so it's really fun to do a comedy. It's really fun to be at home and work with people that I know and love at this company that I'm really rooting for real hard. And the cast is phenomenal. So it just feels like very much a just good, nummy home feelings and also a lot of silliness because it's very, very silly. Like the show is funny and the cast that I've assembled is ridiculous and it's just great. But then after that, I will be doing a production of Michael John LaCusa's The Wild Party for Encores at New York City Center.
New York City
And that
Center.
is
Woo-woo.
it is a quite an auspicious New York debut for me.
That is incredible.
You're going to kill it. I'm so excited for you.
I'm
I'm
very
so freaking excited. You're going to kill.
Well, so listeners in the DC area, you have something to go see.
It runs April of 26.
Okay.
The Young Americans at First Stage, just outside of the
Awesome.
DC area.
So listeners in the DC area, check that out in March, April. Listeners in the Chicago area, check out where's your Timeline piece going to be? It's not in their new space.
It's going to be at the Broadway Playhouse.
So you can check that out.
Downtown in like the Water Tower mall building. That's the Broadway
Nice.
Playhouse, and we open in late January.
Nice. And then listeners in New York, like my mom, go see, go see Lil's production of The Wild Party at Encores. You two are a delight. I really had a blast getting to know you both better and getting to nerd out about talking in cursive around big ideas in theater making and education. So thank you both so much.
And thank you. I really, what's the name of your book, Erica? Tell the world once again.
The book is called How the Arts Can Save Education. And I hope that if listeners are new to this podcast because of Lili-Ann and Nadia, that you'll check out our back catalog, which has interviews with artists of all kinds, theater artists. I mentioned Molly Smith and Wendy Goldberg, but also ceramicists like MacArthur Genius Grant winner Bill Strickland, glass artist Helen Lee, and
Cool.
everything in between. So, we're here for all of that ship content that Lili-Ann shared with us. Onward together, everybody. I think one of my favorite aspects of doing this show and getting a chance to talk with folks who kind of explicitly call out formal education as a barrier in many ways to art making and learning is how sophisticated their understanding of teaching and learning is, even as they're almost rejecting kind of the formal mechanisms that we have for training in arts education. I mean, we talked about mentorship as the acquisition of social capital, which is, a hugely important and kind of critical idea in education studies that looks at not just the stuff of teaching and learning, right? Not just the curriculum, not just the content, but the ways in which interacting with other people and learning to become a certain kind of person is a key aspect of arts education and of teaching and learning. We talked about culturally sustaining pedagogy and how the arts offer a way to engage people with the real stuff of their cultural lives in ways that are authentic and in ways that help connect them to the topic, to the content, to the material. That's another super key feature to arts education that formal spaces often struggle with, that I heard these two women kind of bandying about with ease. And then the other thing we didn't really reflect on, but I heard a lot in their talk, was what they kept calling building a room or creating a room, and how the importance of setting the tone in their rehearsal spaces and in their creative spaces that allow everyone in the space to become successful, which is another key tenet of teaching and learning, the importance of creating the world and creating the space that all of your students, all of your mentees need in order to be successful learners. And I love having the privilege of being the person to make those connections, to say, hey, folks who may have felt isolated from some of these more formal ways that we think about arts education, you all are actually doing this work, and I get the chance to build those bridges between the work that you do and some of these big ideas in teaching and learning.
Yeah, that was really fun. I don't know if I've been introduced on this episode. Hi everyone.
Oh, hi, Doug.
Hi, Erica.
Producer Doug is here with me, and he gets the privilege of listening to my ranting as we're reflecting on the episode that we just recorded. So you all can't see him, obviously, but he is what keeps me from talking into an empty room. So thank you, Doug, for your service to my community, to my building a room.
I also get to, sometimes get to ask you questions, which is fun.
Do you have a question for me that you'd like to ask me?
I do.
On this lovely day?
Erica, I was wondering while we were listening to them talk about mentorship, what are 3 mentorship programs that will probably never exist, but that you would have loved to be involved with?
Oh. How to be a great cat mom.
One.
That's one.
One thing.
Mentoring around TV binge watching habits.
I'm there for that one. 2.
I feel like that would be popular if such a thing existed.
Yeah, it's called life.
Really effective packing habits.
Oh.
3 things?
3 things. There's 3 things.
These are mentorships
Totally solid.
I would have liked to have had.
Yeah.
In my almost 50 years of life.
Does that mean you're not good at those 3 things?
I would say I am now a pretty good cat mom, but my family hated animals growing up, so I never had animals until I was an adult.
Needed to learn it.
And it definitely needed some getting used to, and I've learned on the job, but I definitely was not native to being able to care for animals. Packing I'm terrible at, and binge watching I think would just be more fun with friends.
Yeah, fair.
If I'm honest. I mean, who doesn't love a good find something, watch it, share it, talk about it, learn from it. Doug, I have a question for you. What are 3 ways that our listeners and our community can stay involved in the work that we're doing?
That is a great question. I know the answer. 1, you can like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
That's 1.
You can also visit our website, artseducatorspodcast.com, and you can even submit ideas for guests there.
2.
And if you really don't like websites, you can just write to us with comments at our email, artseducatorspodcast@gmail.com.
3 things.
Yay.
Glad to have you back. Onward together.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. Special thanks to our collaborators, the brilliant and talented Kate Baldwin, and our great friends at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website designed by Cole Locasio at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. We're on Instagram at artseducatorspodcast, and you can write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. You can also find us at a place called YouTube. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We're proud to be sponsored in part by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.